to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the K9 episode, The Last Oak Tree, written by Jim Noble and is directed by Dale Bradley, which I believe is his only story that he directs for the series, or at least it's the first one that he's directed for. He's actually the supervising producer for the series as well. Yeah, there's not really much to talk to about behind the scenes because, of course, this show isn't very well known. So, shall we just jump right in? And the first thing notable about this episode is its visual style. This story looks a lot different than it's usually portrayed in terms... Well, I say it's still, it's telling a story through normal directorial means. But in terms of the status quo of the K9 franchise, it does feel a lot different. With the first half actually opening on this scene where Georgie and Starkey are looking in this forest, and they talk about this. They're in this oak tree forest, being absolutely amazed and stunned at all this beautiful nature around them, where all of a sudden they bump into Robin Hood. Just after they've just been talking about Robin Hood, and Georgie explains that when she was a little, she used to believe Robin Hood was real, and when K9 arrives, he says that the Robin Hood here is actually a lot taller than the actual Robin Hood, or a lot shorter. I can't remember, he says one of those two, due to people's environments at the time, and also as well, apparently K9 has met Robin Hood. That's really interesting because we later learn in the 12th Doctor era about Robin Hood. Quite interesting, isn't it? So that's kind of interesting. But then the Robin Hood starts glitching up, basically revealing that this is an alternate virtual reality. And while Starkey and Georgina take their glasses off, it's revealed that it's a virtual reality. And they're actually in a museum. Yeah, we got a forest and a museum in the first 10 minutes of the episode. That right there is means that this story is much more visually interesting than most. And we've essentially learned that in the museum there's been this technical fault. Something's gone wrong, something has happened that it's made all those RoboCops that are in the department employ seem to be crashing up, and they all seem to be crashing up with in the museum, and that Georgie's mother, who expertises in illegal aliens, comes down to the museum believing that this interference, which K9 seems to pick up but doesn't affect him, confirms that this is part of alien technology. They also discover that in the museum there is this expedition where it shows the last oak tree believed to be part of Robin Hood's oak tree. It's the last surviving piece of oak tree, and someone has stolen it, leaving only a residue of a hard substance. I say hard, it's like a prickly kind of substance, which seems to be causing this interference. And K9 chops a little bit off to give to Professor Griffiths so he can analyse. And Professor Griffiths, when they come back, he keeps asking people, has any letters arrived? And he basically explains that every year he gets an invite to go to this great science, like an award ceremony. And because of his fear of the outside environment from his house, which I've explained in earlier episodes, it's kind of a tradition that he gets invited, and he gets excited by the fact that he will refuse, just under he's just happy that he got invited. However, there seemingly be no news no letter, as the postman seems to be having gotten attacked by a certain creature off screen. And that's basically the setup of the story. There's the missing oak tree. Georgie's mother is investigating the disappearance of the oak tree, as Professor Griffiths is also leading up to his post and can't wait to can't wait to refuse their offer. This is like a fun little gag. And despite majority of the story, I'm going to keep saying it, despite the majority of the story set in very similar locations that we are used to, most of it is of course set in Professor Griffiths' house. We also again have a scene where they go through the sewers and they're in that tunnel, which is overused. However, the directing by Dale Bradley gives it this sort of very unique look that in the sewer anyway, I didn't actually mind. And the Professor Griffiths' house, which is usually used as like the hub of the stories anyway, that does look like anything, but they don't spend a lot more time there than they do in other stories in the series. So this story does feel very unique like that, and I feel like on a visual note that I will remember this story fondly. The story itself, however, is a bit on the basic side. It's a bit light until you get to the ending. The majority of the plot is just our characters trying to figure out what's going on without really much of interest going on in terms of what they are as characters. Nobody really develops, or nothing really has an emotional stake in anything until the very end of the story. And I've realised that despite this video being around about 7 minutes long already, I'm actually struggling to talk about anything other than the ending. Starkey gets kidnapped at one point, and Georgia and Darius go in to the sewers to investigate, to try and find him, whilst K9 gets sort of confused and struggles as something is interfering with his signals. Also as well, back at the department, Drake has seemingly been offered by Lomax, the leader, the controller of the department, to actually take a personal care in this case. And when Drake finds out that Griffiths had not only found out about the missing oak tree, but he also contained a substance of the material and also discovered what it is, which doesn't put a good light on Georgie's mother. The substance turns out to be just like ordinary stuff, mainly made out of paper mache, as all our characters are like, what? And we basically learn that there's the creature that we're up against is this entity that can change the molecular structures of things. So it can turn paper mache into like this particular type of goo, and it needs something, and what it needs, oak tree wood, is something that it can actually change the property of extremely easily, to the point where it could be vitally dangerous. If you could change paper mache into a signaling material that stops electrical equipment, then what can it do with a piece of oak tree? That's kind of like the building up of the main stakes of the adventure. Starkey gets captured and he finds the postman, whose name is Patrick, or Pat for short. A postman named Pat, if you get the reference. It's kind of strange because this show was made in Australia. I don't know if they had Postman Pat in Australia, but I got it anyway, so that's the main thing, because who else is watching this, let's be honest. And they basically are it's basically the ending of the story has a very similar vibe to Alien, where you have these people kind of like webbed up to the wall with this gooey material. There's these like organic eggs seem to be placing around everywhere, and yeah, it just kind of has a small like alien vibe, not like a two thing, but especially the fleshy eggs reminded me a lot of Alien. Until then, we get to see the creature, which looks like a giant sort of centipede looking insect creature, a cross between a centipede and like a normal like bug with its bug-like features. And at one point, Starkey uses his dog whistle and to try and contact K9 so that they can. He has a better way of finding them, and the material around Starkey and the postman seems to collapse, and Starkey looks at the eggs on the floor. Now, this is something I actually like in the story because it actually has something to say and has something like of an emotional interest, and the way it's directed really gives puts the point in the idea of the story. However, it doesn't really make much sense, and if you think about it too hard, the story could have easily been taken out of proportion quickly. Essentially, Starkey realizes that the creature is not a bad individual. It's just a mother looking after its eggs and realizes that the oak tree that it needed is just something it needed for material for its ship so that it can transport without them and fly off into space without harming anybody. And that's kind of cool and interesting, and I like how Starkey kind of realizes, because he's this he was a homeless person for his life, and he's slowly gaining around his family. So when he sees the egg and realizes family, he does not want to see this creature hurt, and he knows that this creature is innocent in a way. I do like that. But come on, we were all thinking, what's stopping the message being that the creature's going to eat them alive, or devour them and turn them into food for the babies? Basically, sacrifice for the new generation, their first meal. That was like the main implication I was having, and especially how there's references to aliens. It kind of felt like it was going that way. But I do like the twist that they were actually good all along. But Drake finds where this bug creature has been living, and K9 defaults his equipment to try and track the creature. So what Drake does is he puts a bomb device in the sewers, and so K9 has to use his laser beam to block off this device. The bug-like creature then goes into its ship, with the egg seemingly being abandoned because there's not enough time. But Starkey hates the idea of it, and especially how this is the last piece of oak tree on Earth. This might actually be the last time that these creatures can actually travel around through space. It's a part of their technology. So Starkey picks up an egg and offers it to the mother. I love that shot where it's holding it up and you see the light from the ship beam in, almost turning his skin completely white, and it's almost like he's looking at like an angel as he's offering it. That is some really beautiful imagery, and it really shows the great visual style that K9 could have had. And then we learn that the ship isn't actually a ship of sorts. It's actually like a regeneration process where it turns these bug creatures into a cocoon, and it needs the oak tree to basically maintain its status so it can go in its cocoon, and it can evolve into a butterfly form appearance, in which, with only seconds to spare, these butterfly creatures with all the eggs are hatching, cocooned, and already turned into these beautiful half men, half butterfly, which I also got to add, the CGI in this episode looks absolutely horrible. There are some shots that it's alright, especially when it's shot mainly in the dark, but there are some really ugly, unflattering shots of the monsters in this that doesn't do the story any justice, any favours. And the story ends with all our team reuniting on the surface as Jake believed that he had, Drake believing that he had destroyed these creatures once and for all. And so that is the last oak tree. Overall, the visual style of the story, it's probably, in terms of its bare minimum, in terms of how it tells its story through camera and positioning, it's probably one of the more interesting episodes of K9. However, the plot, not bad, not good, it's just kind of mediocre and doesn't really get interesting until the very end, but it gets let down by a horrible, ugly CGI work and a very an ending which kind of feels really not abrupt, what's the word, like really quick paced, which doesn't really doesn't feel deserving from the episode that we were given to the majority of it. But most of it, there's nothing really here to get worked up about, there's nothing here to get you excited about. It's just a pretty decent episode with some good looking visuals, and that's about it. So anyway, that was The Last Oak Tree. So join me next time when the Doctor takes Amy to Roman times as he gets a message from the dawn of time. As time seems to be unraveling, the cracks in time seem to be spreading everywhere, which is gaining an army of all of the Doctor's biggest foes as they finally find one of the greatest mysteries in the universe. As it's happening, Stonehenge is opening, and we find the greatest mystery in the universe. So join me next time for the Pandorica opens and the Big Bang, the finale to Series 5. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!